Alright, hey guys, I'm just going to be making a Necromancer Power PvP Build video just to show you guys how I make my Necromancer do lots and lots of damage and whatnot. So, I'm going to start off by showing you the runes that I use. If I can click on it. For my armor, for everything I use Rune of Divinity for plus 12 crit chance. This is really strong for power, obviously. Moving on to my amulet just quickly. I picked the Valkyrie amulet. Now the one that it gives you before gives you a lot more vitality. And so it drops you from about 26k to about 19k, and that's a little bit of a deficit, but it's very much worth it for like the 800 power, the toughness, the 15% crit, and well, also the jewel that comes with it. So very much worth it in my opinion. And I've noticed that the health isn't really needed because the health just goes down. It seems the same anyhow. But moving on, we got I run a scepter dagger for my primary and secondary axe warhorn, which is very important in my opinion. I'm gonna do a bit of a rundown for the weapons here. The curses for your for basically your auto attack with the scepter is very strong. Puts like a little bit of damage, but does two different conditions. The first two being the same, being bleeds, and then the second one being a poison. And now it stacks really nicely, the bleeds at least. And the poison, they don't last very long, but since it's your auto attack, you're mashing on a lot of these conditions quickly, so it tends to stay on very well. It's not a big deal with the conditions falling off. The next one, Grasping Dead, cripples and bleeds, does a bit of damage, and it's in an area that's almost about the size of a mark, I'd say. So it's very strong. Feast of Corruption, when you use it, it gives you a bit of life force. It does a decent amount of damage. It almost does 1,000 base damage, which isn't too bad. But being a Necromancer, it also gives you damage per condition, 8%. And that's really good because in this build, you tend to put a lot of conditions on them. And when I say a single condition, a bleed stack of like 4 does not count as individual, like 4 individual conditions. It needs to be like bleed, vulnerability, and weakness. Those would be 3 of them. So that would count as your 24% for those 3 or something like that. But it tends to add up big time. So you want to use this when they have like 4+ conditions. Deathly Swarm. This isn't too bad. Basically, it's just a really long blind, like a 6-second blind or something crazy like that. And it also bounces to 3 different targets, so you can see it picks one and it just bounces to 3 around them. It's really good. Enfeebling Blood's really good. Weakness and bleeding at 2 for 11 seconds. It also does a bit of damage. The bleeding stacks up to be like 1350 or something, like 1315. But it looks kind of cool. It looks like a nuke almost coming down from the sky. It's cool. It's good. Moving on to the axe warhorn. One of my favorite combinations. The axe is kind of overlooked. Like the damage that it outputs is pretty decent. So for a 2-swipe, like this is basically the auto attack. It hits twice, hits for about 500 something, but it also puts 2 stacks of vulnerability that goes for 5 seconds. And I believe if for like a split second, the vulnerability can get up to 8 when you're just mashing on it. It'll stack up to 8, but normally 6 is about as high as it'll go, but you can get it to 8 for like half a second. Ghastly Claws is basically a channeled thing. You can obviously walk around, which is cool, but it'll do about 2k damage. It'll also get you life force, so it's a very strong attack. Unholy Feast damages and cripples your nearby foes, so basically you cripple for 5 seconds at half their movement speed, and you also gain 3 seconds of retaliation. while doing some damage, and you can use that every 15 seconds. So, you know, strong cripple with good retaliation every 15 seconds isn't something to complain about, you know. Okay, moving on to the warhorn. Very, very important. Whale of Doom. This is your 2-second daze in a cone. Now, it's not that long of a range, I don't believe. 600, yeah. You gotta be pretty close to them. But, yeah, 2-second daze is very good. But moving on to the more important one, Locust Swarm. This gives you, what, like a 1/3? Yeah, 1/3 movement speed buff for 12 seconds, as well as while you're around your enemies, you're doing, I believe it's 100 and something per second, as well as you cripple every second for a second. So I mean, as long as you're staying on top of them, they're crippled for, I believe, 12 seconds. If like the longest you can do, a 12-second cripple with doing maybe 1500 and all is pretty good. Utilities. Okay, so I use consume conditions, and this is just because when you're against other PvPers, chances are you're going to get conditions, right? And it's going to be like bleeds, vulnerability, and stuff like that. And so, you basically, you drop all your conditions and get heals for them. I believe that's how it works, yeah. So, you're able to get rid of all your conditions this way, as well as heal. So the base heal is about 5600, which is very good as it is. That's over a quarter of your health. And you also get 763 per condition. So let's say you have 4 or 5 conditions on you, that's a lot. So very, very viable. Okay, my favorite skill as a Necromancer, Signet of Spite. Its passive increases your power slightly, and the active, it doesn't say all of them, but because it's actually 6 conditions rather than just 5. But it inflicts bleeding, blindness, crippled, poison, and vulnerability, but it also inflicts weakness. So it does 600 damage, which isn't really anything to care about, but it puts 6 conditions on your target, which with this, in the traits, you spec so that as many conditions as you have, the more damage you do. So Signet of Spite, in my opinion, in a power build is very, very needed. It's a staple. Corrupt Boon. Basically, you poison yourself, which in Necromancer skills, it's not uncommon to see yourself inflict a condition on yourself, and then and then inflict your target even worse. Which inflicting yourself isn't always a bad thing, because there's ways to get rid of them, as well as ways to have your target be inflicted by your own conditions, which is the next one. Transfers conditions from nearby allies to yourself. So let's say you're in a small radius of your, like from this guy to me, chances are it'll like, let's say he's got bleeding and vulnerability, that'll come to me, and that's just the passive. So if I sit with it, I'm retarded. But the active sends your conditions to a foe. So let's say I have a couple, like 4 conditions on me, I can send that right over to an enemy. But I didn't really talk about that completely. Anyways, I poison myself and I transform all the boons on a target into negative conditions. That's something I should have really focused on, but I kind of got sidetracked. Anyways, that's very important. I feel like these 3 are just, they're hard to overlook. The last one, Lich form. Shit, that's not Lich form. Yeah, so auto attack, basically long range claws. The E is a mark sized thing that puts on 8 vulnerability and does some damage. The third ability is a knockback and a chill. The fourth ability is basically summons a lot of horror things, and this one basically just does a good amount of damage. And if I do it, okay, so it's really cool. If you use it on an enemy, it takes the boons off of them, but if you do it on a ally, it takes conditions off of them. So it's a very support slash yeah, well, really it's just very supporty. because you screw up the team in a way that doesn't do damage, but it just helps your teammates. Like, let's say they have protection might. Well, you're basically helping your teammates not get their face smashed in, as well as, you know, you can help your teammates smash their faces in. So that's always bonus. Anyways, those are the skills that I chose, and I feel as though they're very important. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the traits. I go 10, 25, 20, 0, 15. For some reason, this hasn't been chosen yet. There we go. That's or this. I don't know why. Crazy. It's just crazy. There it is. Okay. Okay, so the first trait is gain life whenever you kill something, which it's not a lot of life. It's like 2k or 3k or something, not even. So it's not that big of a deal, but it's nice. The first real trait, Life Blast and Plague Blast grant might for 15 seconds. So your Life Blast is basically your auto attack in your Death Shroud form, and you can stack up might to like 6 times or something, let's say, or even more, but because it's 15 seconds, right? And so until the 15 seconds up, the first stack isn't gone. But yeah, no, it's very good. And I'll talk about whatever I was about to say later, but anyways. Going on to curses, we got Barbed Precision. Your critical hits have a 66% chance to cause bleeding, and I put a lot of my stats are into precision, and a lot of it's in crit damage or critical strike chance, as you've seen with just my runes and all that. So it really ups the chance on the bleeding. Weakening Shroud, cast Enfeebling Blood when entering Death Shroud. Now this is really good. This right here, your dagger offhand thing, weakness and bleeding for 11 seconds. And that's very strong for just going into Death Shroud. Furious Demise, gain Fury for 5 seconds when entering Death Shroud. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's decent. Spectral Attunement. Spectral skills have longer durations and grant life force on use. Now this is kind of underappreciated in my opinion. I feel like I mean, you can use other things, but like even Banshee's Wail isn't that bad, but I mean, I'd rather use Weakening Shroud. Oh shit. I'm crazy. Sorry. Spectral Attunement. Because it just seems to be more viable. Target the weak, 2% increased damage for each condition on a foe. Like I said, you do more damage as, you know, let's say they have, 5, that's 10% more damage. That's kind of a big deal. Okay, so Death Magic Reanimator, it's not that great. Summon a Jagged Horror whenever you kill a foe. 30-second cooldown. The Jagged Horror is kind of shitty. It slowly kills itself. I don't know, it's not really a big deal. It's whatever. Shrouded Removal, lose a condition when you enter Death Shroud. That's not too great either, but I mean, there's not much else, to be honest. So just take it up the ass with that. Yeah. So Protection of the Horde, this is also not that great. Gain 20 plus toughness for each minion under your control. This is only really good when you're in Lich form and you summon all of them and you get like, I don't know, 120 toughness or something like that. So yeah, it's not that great. Death Shiver though, this is really good. Apply vulnerability for 10 seconds every 3 seconds to nearby foes while in Death Shroud. So you can stack vulnerability up to 3 times at the most while you're just in Death Shroud, while you're just standing by people. And that's just strong because you don't have to do anything. It's just kind of like a passive thing. So really good in my opinion. Soul Reaping. First one, Gluttony, increases life force gain from skills by 5%. Not a big deal. It's kind of cool though. Okay, so this is the main reason I think I would have done anything with Soul Reaping, because your Life Blast, the auto attack from Death Shroud, the same that gives you might, now also pierces and causes vulnerability, and I believe it's for 6 seconds, 5-6 seconds. So you can stack that up 2 or 3 times, or just twice, or something like that. But that's really good. Last gasp, gain spectral armor at 50% health, 60-second cooldown, and this saves your ass a lot more than you think. I'll show you what it does. Spectral armor, spectral. Gain life force as you take damage. Removed when you enter Death Shroud. Also applies protection, so you get a 7-second protection. You also get spectral armor, which basically it's almost like like an extra shield that takes, let's say, 4k damage or something like that. But while you're getting attacked, you also gain 3% life force when taking damage. So that gives you a lot of extra Death Shroud to even stay alive and do some burst. And so that tends to be really strong in my opinion. So that's basically my build. If you have any questions, just leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. Throw a like if you liked it. If you dislike it, shut the hell up. Let's see here. Subscribe because we loves you. And yeah, if you want another type of video like this, like more of a supporty Necromancer is what I normally like to run, where it's so tanky. Like, you still do a decent amount of damage, but it's so tanky that I could probably take all these people on and live for at least a good 10 seconds, at least. It's pretty nuts, honestly. But if you want to see that or gameplay of the power build, I'll get that up whenever. But thanks for watching, and see you guys later.